Hi guys, welcome back to day 6. We're going to go over lesson 6.4, Simplifying Rational Expressions Advanced. This is going to be a two-part lesson that you're going to get today and then again later in the week, Thursday or Friday. Along with this one is an article to look at in Khan Academy and another video to watch. So let's go ahead and get started. Just some quick reminders. A rational expression is a ratio of two polynomials. And remember, a ratio is a fraction. So we just have a polynomial in the numerator on the top and a polynomial in the denominator on the bottom. One last thing to remember, that a rational expression is considered simplified if the numerator, the top of the ratio, the top of the fraction, and the denominator, the bottom of my ratio, the bottom of my fraction, have no factors in common. All right, let's go ahead and get started with our first of two examples for this first part of the lesson, which will be day 6. So here is my first... sorry about my dog barking. Here's my first problem. Ooh, there's a fly. Simplify 10x to the third over 2x squared minus 18x. So we have to think back to lesson 6.2, I think it was, where we want to take and simplify the denominator and simplify the numerator. Not necessarily in that order. I think I said denominator first because I started writing it first. But let's go ahead and think about the numerator. The numerator has no plus, it has no minus, it only has 10 and x to the third. So the only thing I can do is think of 10 as 2 times 5, because that might come in handy. I could also have thought about it as 1 times 10, but I just have this feeling like 2 and 5 are better numbers, and I'm probably going to be able to cancel something out with the bottom. And then I could think of x to the third as being 3 separate x's separated by that multiplication symbol. All right, now the bottom is starting to look like a quadratic. It starts with the x squared and then it has the minus the x term, but it's missing the constant. So I can't go to my t-chart to factor, but what I can do is look for a common something in common between the two, a greatest common factor. That's the word I was looking for. All right, so the first thing I notice is there's 2 x's and 1 x, so I can take 1 x away. Now I want to look at the coefficients, the large numbers. I see a 2 and I see an 18, so I always want to look at the smaller of the numbers 2. Can I divide 18 by 2? Yes, I can. So I can take a 2 as well. If I divide 2 by 2, I get 1. I can put it, but I don't have to. That's why you invisibly see it. And if I had 2 x's on the top and 1 on the bottom, that leaves me with 1. I put the subtraction sign because that's what I see, and now I just start my dividing again. 18 divided by 2 is 9, and x would cancel out, leaving me with just 9. So there we go. I've gone ahead and factored. Now, just a quick reminder in case Khan Academy asks you, this is where you're going to look for your undefined terms, or the ones that you are excluding. Sometimes, I think his name is Saul from Saul Khan from Khan Academy, talks about them being excluded. These are the domain restrictions. In one of the previous lessons, we talked about the domain, and these are the ones that are restricting. Let me make sure. No, I'm not spelling it right. Restrictions. That's the one that's going to give me my domain restriction. So we're going to come right back to that. But I'm going to go ahead and start canceling. Well, I see a 2 and a 2. So they can cancel each other out. I also see an x and an x. They can cancel each other out. Now, this x and this x cannot cancel each other out because this x is inside the parentheses with the minus 9. So that's all I can cancel out. Okay, I'm left with a 5, and 2 x's on the top. Well, I can write that simply as 5x squared, okay? And on the bottom, I have nothing from the beginning. I only have the x minus 9. So there is my, I like the parentheses. It's not necessary, but I like them. There's my simplified version. I just have to come back and say, what is x not equal to? Well, that's where I'm coming back here to my undefined, my excluded terms. I'm going to take both of these and set them equal to 0. So let me see, I think I have some space over here. So 2x equals 0. If I solve that by dividing by 2, I get x equals 0. So there's my first undefined term. I know I have a second one, but it is implied by the denominator here in my simplified ratio. Now, it doesn't mean that it's not there, but sometimes Khan Academy doesn't ask you to put this one. X minus 9 equals 0, so I added 9 to both sides. My other one, my implied one, is 9. And I'm just going to write the word implied right here, because sometimes that's the one that you don't have to put, okay? So what's the main takeaway from this example? Okay, the main takeaway from this example, sometimes we will have to factor monomials in order to simplify a rational expression. Okay, so sometimes we're going to have to do like what we did on the top. That's a way to factor a monomial, and then the true way to factor a monomial is the way on the bottom. Okay, well, the monomial is the one on the top. The one on the bottom is a binomial, excuse me. All right, last example for today. I have it on the other page, and it's another simplify, but if you'll notice, everything is basically set up for us. Everything is factored, so this one will go super fast. Here we go. As I start looking, these two kind of look alike, but one's minus, one's plus. The x's are both in the same place, so there's really nothing I can do there. But these two look very familiar from the last lesson. These two look very, very similar. It's just that that 3 and that x on the top are in different spots. So if I remember from the last lesson, if I take that first one and I multiply it by -1, I can take the 3 and the x and I can switch them on either side of the subtraction sign. If I don't put the -1 in front, I can't switch them. If I don't put the -1 in front, I actually cannot switch them. Now there's really nothing to do in the bottom but copy. The whole trick here was I had to recognize that these two were very, very similar. I do believe we call them opposites. And that if I multiply the 1 on the top by -1, I can switch the position of the 3 and the x. Now I can go ahead and I can cancel out this parenthesis with this parenthesis, that factor with that factor. And I am left with -1 times x minus 1 on the top. And I'm left with x plus 1 on the bottom. Now, you might see the -1 distributed. So that would give me a -x plus 1, or 1 minus x over x plus 1. Now, I could go ahead and come back and say, what can x not equal? Well, remember, that's where we go back to here. Here are undefines. And let's see if you could pause the video and figure out what the two undefines are without setting up the equation. All right, so I'm going to assume that you went ahead and did that. X minus 1 equals 3 would give me a positive 3, and then the implied one would be x plus 1 equals 0, -1. There's my implied one. All right, so just like the assignment on Schoology says, there's an article to complete in Khan Academy, and there's a Khan Academy video to watch that's going to get you ready for the next assignment. See you later.